You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Long time no see. How are you feeling after jury duty?
I'm good. I'm a man that I tell you, is real interesting. I could think that if I had to start my career over, I might get into Jack Russo's area of business.
You go to law school and take the bar exam and the whole 9 yards. Is that what you're saying?
I found it very interesting watching attorneys go back and forth and the judge kind of do her deal. And, the whole process was really interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you sat in a criminal case for a couple of weeks, right?
3 weeks. Yeah.
I mean, you were able to tolerate that for 3 weeks. That takes a lot of gumption.
Well, I have to say it was, I thought about it first. And then I think I shared with the judge kind of inspired me a little bit and kind of sense of duty and civic duty and all that stuff. And if one of your children or loved one was there, you'd like to have a decent, so I was the fourth one chosen of the 12. And then, we got the case handed to us last Thursday. It took us a little less than 3 days.
3 days of deliberation.
Yeah.
Wow. So you saw the inner sanctum.
Yeah.
And you were in the criminal courts on Heading Street, right?
That's correct. Santa Clara. Yeah.
And what would you say was the quality of the coffee or the whatever they
oh my God. I tell you one thing, I had jokes amongst people during the whole process that this is just another example of where in the hell does our tax money go? I mean, those places were a dump. The jury's chairs that I sat in had tape on them and paint, like they forgot to cover it when they painted the walls, and it was terrible.
I mean, they built a new family court building on North First Street next to the Civil. And it's actually a beautiful building, very modern, but it's for divorce cases. And there's a lot of divorce cases, and I guess that's okay. But civil is an old building, and criminal is an old building, and both buildings are arguably at end of life, but they don't have the money to knock them down. They sort of patch them as they go along. And at the end of the day, you would think California, being such a great state and such a big economy in Silicon Valley, that Google or Facebook or others would just donate some money to make it much more modern.
I was just surprised, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it was hot a couple of days, so they opened the windows, but then the wind was blowing the thing, so they couldn't hear each other, and then everybody's got masks on. It was just it was just crazy.
So is the verdict public? It must be, right? So
it's public. It was 2 counts, and we found them guilty on both accounts. And
so 3 weeks of trial, 3 days of deliberation, and two criminal felonies,
right,
against an individual defendant,
right,
one individual defendant. Right. A lot of due process, I imagine. You actually spent a lot of time looking at the evidence. And what was the felonies? A rape case, or what was the actual case?
Yeah, rape and assault. Yeah.
So a victim testified, and it sounds like she was credible, right?
She was. Something interesting too, and again, this is not probably news to you, but when they read the verdict, the defense, first of all, he broke down and was going a little hysterical, and it got a little emotional in the courtroom. So they had 2 sheriffs there, kind of making sure, because the parents, especially the dad and some of his friends, were, I think, kind of had some aggressive body language going on, But the judge says, if any of you want to, sometimes the attorneys could learn from, now the trial's over, if they could ask you any questions, if you want to do that, it's up to you. I just felt like it was too heated and contentious at the time to stick around. But I will have to say the defense attorney emailed, I'm guessing all of us, all 12. And the defense attorney did say, I'm contacting you. The trial's over. This is not to intimidate you. I just want to learn what I could have done better, blah, blah. And so I responded to her. I said, sure, I'll talk to you. And we had about a half an hour conversation.
What kind of questions?
She asked first, not in this order, but she asked me, when you initially, the very first time you heard it was a rape trial, how did it strike you? Like, did you, right out of your gut, did you feel like you could be objective and fair? And I said, I admit when I just got it, I have 2 daughters, a wife and sister-in-laws and stuff. So I said, it was a little bit kind of odd, but I could tell you that within, a few minutes after that, I thought, this has nothing to do with me or my family, and I can be fair and objective. And then she asked, she said, once the trial started, did you have a sense one way or another what your decision might be? I said, no, not when it started. She asked me, at what point of the trial did you feel like you were pretty convinced of your decision? And I told her, when you started calling your witnesses.
That's interesting.
And I didn't say it in a sarcastic way, of course. I just said, 2 specific witnesses. I told her, I said, when you called this one gal, she was really a mess. She contradicted a lot of the defendant. She called the defendant to the stand. He just was not believable to me. He showed no remorse. He showed no emotional, it was almost, he kind of had a cocky attitude, to be honest with you, to me.
So she called the defendant, which
she did.
She could have chosen, or he could have chosen, to exercise his right against self-incrimination.
Yeah,
and not testify.
She said that's, and again, this stuff more, but she says it's always a risky call one way or another, right? Whether you do that or not. Yeah.
Right. I mean, look, the prosecutor has to prove every element of a criminal charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
So, and the way it works, you just experience it. You got to get to an actual unanimous verdict.
Right.
And if you had one person who held out, I mean, in civil cases, you could have 3 people that hold out. 9 of 12 will carry a civil verdict. But in criminal cases, it has to be unanimous. So you have 12 people. They all have different views about a lot of things, as I'm sure you experienced. And if it's, if you get one that just holds fast to, I think it was consensual, whatever the defense was. I mean, I don't know what the defense was.
That's really what it was. Yeah, he says it's consensual, and she says it wasn't. And he actually had a pattern of doing this to women as early as when he was 14 or 15 years old. And this is another thing I didn't know until I was involved. I didn't know that, I guess, rape and assault is the only type of case that you could bring in other, what would you call it, other patterns or incidents that don't pertain to the case. Is that correct? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, this is called the modus operandi, or the MO, kind of the manner in which something is carried out. Okay. If there's a pattern in the manner. What was the case? People versus what is the actual case?
Mason Ryan.
Ryan, R-Y-A-N?
Last name's Ryan. Mason Ryan, R-Y-A-N.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's any news about it.
I couldn't really find any news other than there was a series of tweets that were posted. This involved, there was a lot of stuff going on at Mitty High School. It all started with hashtag expose Mitty. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, of course, by their judge's direction, I did not do any research until the trial was over. But there was stuff indicating on that hashtag expose Mitty, but I didn't see any other news on it yet.
Is it Mitty, M-I-T-T-Y?
Yeah.
Expose Mitty? Is that it? I mean, look at the world we live in. It's just amazing how fast information can flow, right? I mean, I don't know, like in any other country in the world that we have this amazing system, I guess is what you would say, of exposing different cases so quickly. And I guess Mitty High School where is that? In San Jose, or where is it?
That's in San Jose, yeah.
San Jose, and is this guy a teacher or something, or what was?
No, he was a student. And the reason for the hashtag was that there was a lot of complaints, not only but by young men raping women, but there was also racial allegations and favorital treatment with athletes and all that kind of stuff. Just probably pretty typical of a ritzy titsy private school.
It's a private school.
Yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Very interesting.
Did you know this school before?
Oh, yeah.
You know of it before?
Yeah, I didn't attend it, but I had a lot of friends that attended there when at my age, when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. It's a private school?
Yeah, known for their academics and their sports. This guy had quite the record.
The defendant had quite a record of being sort of chastised about different things?
Yeah, they brought in 3 different incidents, not even pertaining to the case that he was tried for, to build the case and the pattern for his behavior. And they had all these girls come in and testify from 4 or 5 years ago of stuff that he had done. And his MO would be that, he would know them, but they wouldn't be his girlfriends, but he'd know them in social gatherings. And then he would somehow typically get them in a car, go to a viewpoint and fill them up with booze and drugs. He would not drink anything himself. His motive really seemed to be get them so drunk that then he took advantage of them, is really what took place.
So this is a Catholic school? Archbishop Mitty High School? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he had parents that were paying the fees for the school. I guess the parents probably paid for a private defense.
They must have. Yeah.
And the defense lawyer was a woman, it sounds like.
She was.
And you thought she was good, or what you thought?
I thought she really did a good job. The way I told her is, I'm not sure. I said, I don't know if this is going to sound right, but I'm not sure if you were dealt the right set of cards on this case. That's what I told her. I just think that the majority of her witnesses did not do her any favors.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just me. Everybody else felt that way too. I didn't share other people's opinion with her. I said, this is my opinion, of course. But there was actually 2 people that kind of held out towards the end on the jury. There was 10 of us.
That got tough about maybe there's not enough evidence.
Yeah. And then we talked through it, and we brought the court reporter in and had us read some more testimony. We watched some more video, and then eventually they kind of, they were right on the edge, and then eventually they just said, yeah, we got enough. And so 10 of us.
What was the video? What was the video that you watched?
It was video testimony of the victim when the San Jose Police Department interviewed her after it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that credibility, or her video, was very credible, sounds like.
Hers was one of her friends. Her account of that evening, all the events, was very credible. His was not. His buddy, the attorney said, give me an example of why you'd have found this one kid's testimony to be non-credible. I said, well, once you really detect that someone's lying or they're contradicting each other, it said it's really hard to believe. But I said, so I gave her an example. He was on the stand, and this young kid testified that from 50 feet away, pitch dark, no lights, he could see exactly what was going on in the car.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he tested.
And what? There was nothing going on in the car?
Well, there might have been, but the prosecuting attorney, the DA, really kind of tore him apart without calling him a liar. Saying so she says, okay, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to stand 50 feet away. So she says, you're telling me in pitch dark you could see exactly what the male and female were doing in this car? He goes, oh yeah, he was doing this, and that was just bullshit to me. Wow. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean?
So two women. The prosecutor was a woman.
Yes.
And the defense attorney was a woman.
And so was the judge.
The judge was a woman. So we had all female professionals.
Yeah.
And then we have a male defendant.
Yeah.
And we have essentially the victim, who probably was attractive, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, they were young. They're, attractive kids. So was he, a young, attractive man, and so was she. Yeah. And
were they 18, or you're in the adult criminal court? You're not in juvenile hall on this.
Yeah, this is an adult. They were both 18 when it took place.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting, because if they were both 17, he probably would have gotten a plea deal or something in juvenile hall. So being 18 turns it into an adult offense. for which there will be sentencing probably now scheduled, right? It hasn't happened yet, right? The
hasn't happened. I was gonna ask you, what do you feel like he'll get on something like that?
Well, the statute's pretty tough. It's not attempted rape, it was actual rape, right? There was a rape kit that was put into evidence, right? There was probably samples and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right. So DNA samples and the rest, and they had someone testify the DNA, I'm imagining.
Yeah, and his case was basically she consented. That was his case.
Right. So but that's also like saying, yeah, I did have penetration. That's like a big test. And it's not just fondling, right? It's not, if you look at the statute, and, you could start by talking about what are the statutes throughout the United States. It's 50 different states, 50 different statutes. Each state has their own statute. So it's a state offense that happens geographically in a state. And, different states come down differently. If you look at the Wikipedia, I'll put this up on the screen because you get a kick out of this. Yeah. There's actually so much variation. So here's the rape laws in the United States according to Wikipedia.
Okay.
Right? So let's just take Alabama first. There's actually different levels of rape in Alabama.
Wow.
There's rape in the first degree, second degree, sodomy, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives mandatory sentencing.
Holy smokes.
It's pretty high, right? It's really high, right? So now let's compare California. I mean, we can do Alaska too. Alaska is pretty tough too, if you look at those numbers, right?
Man.
But let's go to California. California says it's...
Wow, look at California, lenient.
Yeah, I just want to set that context because...
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, Penal Code 261 is what you were... Either that or 264A. Rape,
yes. Yeah.
Right? The numbers. So rape when the victim is under 14, that gets a higher 9, 11, or 13 years, depending on, right? Yeah. Rape when it's between 14 and 18 is 7, 9, and 11. Rape of an adult is actually less. It's 3, 6, or 8. So it's really interesting. And then, the rape of a spouse when the victim is under 14, rape of a spouse, 3, 6, or 8. Of course, child situation is a lot tougher. So just to give you the flavor of the difference, so let's see if we could pick a lenient state. I don't know what a lenient state. I'm going to say Utah just to compare it for a second, because Utah's got all these wacky laws about, it's actually, unlawful sexual activity with a minor up to 5 years. Actually pretty low. Unlawful sexual conduct with 16 or 17-year-old up to 5 years.
Look at even rape. Life or not less than, wow.
Yeah, that's interesting. So rape with bodily injuries. I don't think that's what you had, right? Did you have bodily injuries too?
No, not really, no.
So I thought Utah would be soft. Maybe Utah is pretty tough. Let's take South Carolina. I'm just picking this stuff. No, up to 10 years, 30 years. Rape in the first degree, life for any term not less than 15 years. So, California probably is more reasonable compared to all these other states. I'm going to try one other, New Mexico. I've never done this before. Look at this, rape in the first degree between 5 and 25. Rape in the third degree up to 4. So my guess is he's going to get at least 8 years, perhaps 5 to 8 years would be my guess.
Okay.
So that's a big chunk of his young life, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to try one other, Wyoming. No, it's pretty tough in Wyoming too, 5 to 15 years, right? So it's interesting because there's no standard, right? Had these kids driven the car across, let's take Nevada, of course, there's legalized sex there. Sexual assault is what they call it in
so they don't even name it as rape there.
They don't even name it as rape. They say sexual assault, statutory sexual seduction when offender is above 21, 1 to 10 years. Statutory sexual seduction when offender is under 21, up to 364 days. So have they driven the car to Nevada and they engaged in whatever happened in Nevada, Nevada law would have been controlling, and the most that he would have gotten under this statute, if it's statutory sexual seduction, if that's really the charge, is up to a year. So it's relatively small, just driving over to Nevada.
It's interesting how they don't use the word rape in that.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Yeah.
And so if you look at all these statutes, well, of course, I'm not finding anything about this case online, which is surprising. Are there any reporters?
Do you think that I thought there was reporters, but do you think that you won't have the reporter stuff until he gets sentenced, or do they typically do something right after he's been found guilty?
Usually a reporter would be there for the San Jose Mercury.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of reporters there. I didn't know that for sure, but
and usually they would be saying something about what's going on. Of course, when you look at that recent Theranos case down in the federal court in San Jose, there were lots of reporters, and it was a big case because a woman CEO was charged with fraud. Mm-hmm. And now there's the second trial going on against Balwani, who was her partner, both romantically and in the business, and the COO of the business for about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And there's like no one there, apparently. There's only a few reporters there. It's not the same cause celeb kind of thing.
And then at the same time, all this is going on, in the same time we were just finishing up our trial. They had this, I don't know if you heard, kind of a high profile. He was like a MMA, one of these FCA, I don't know they call the ring fighter guys. He was famous, and he found out that someone molested his niece, I believe what it was, a minor. And he went after this guy and premeditated, stalked him. I think he tracked him down and shot him a couple times. I don't think the guy died, but that was all going on while we were down there too. Okay,
so you saw some TV crews down.
Yeah, at that point. Right. I didn't know what it was for, but yeah, that's what it turned out.
I mean, this is like the 1 in 100 criminal case that doesn't end up with a plea. Because just like civil cases, most criminal cases settle. The settlement is by way of a plea,
right,
as opposed to a settlement agreement. And a plea is typically a negotiated deal that says, look, if you accept that you're, whatever they would plead it down to, sexual contact,
right,
3 years, probation, blah, blah. And the guy's like, no, it was consensual. I'm going to fight this. Okay, well, that's fine. It's your choice if you want to do that. And there are cases, of course, when people do actually in their head believe that sincerely that they weren't doing anything wrongful, but they were wrong. They didn't take no to mean no. No is no. And
no is no.
Now people are writing these papers about the best one I saw recently, I could send it to you, is that maybe the standard needs to be, and as males, we'll get a kick out of it, that your partner has to be enthusiastic about having.
Are you kidding?
I swear. And I said to myself, you think the population is going down based on demographics? If you have to say to your spouse, male or female, whoever, are you enthusiastic about tonight? No, not really. I don't, not to be honest.
There'd be too many cases in court.
I mean, we're actually talking about this. It's actually linked to a discussion that we've been having about this Texas abortion law, which is to what degree is it going to generate litigation between folks that maybe were unmarried or even married partners that disagreed about whether there should be an abortion. And so the wife or spouse, female spouse that decides to get the abortion ends up getting retaliated against by dint of a statute that allows a bounty hunter, in this case, it could even be the husband potentially or the boyfriend. I mean, imagine, that the time clock runs to whatever the time, I think it's 15 weeks now in Texas, that, it's illegal to do an abortion after 15 weeks.
Right,
Essentially, it's like first trimester plus 2 or so weeks. That's a pretty, it's a pretty early point in a decision cycle. And so when you think about that, you say to yourself, wow, this is going to beget a lot of litigation. Now, your case was just the standard, I guess, standard. It's young people. Historically, my sense is these cases were not even brought when it was young people who knew each other.
That's true.
Because people were like, kids will be kids. They rationalized it. And I remember, I won't mention any names, but I remember driving in a car with one of our paralegals to a trial that we were getting ready for. And I could detect that she was really upset about something. And I said, "What's going on?" I won't use her name. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And she said, "I don't even know how to tell you this, but I think I got date raped last night."
Whoa.
And wow. I said, this is, of course, really decades ago now as I'm thinking about it. And I said, "What?" Like, it didn't even register to me when I first heard it. I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, I went on a date with this guy. He sort of got me drunk, but I can't really say he got me drunk. I could say that we were drinking, and one thing led to another. And he ended up back in my apartment. I don't even remember offering it." And he said, "I kept saying no." He kept, I said, "Well, let me just turn the car." I said, "I don't know if I could turn the car on." And this was before Uber was around. I said, "You don't have to come into work today. Like, you could have called in sick." And I said, "I got to get to this courthouse for this trial. Like, if you want, I'll call a cab." She said, "No, I just have to deal with it." I said, "Look, I remember trying to be empathetic, and I remember trying to say, the timing on this is so awful."
Yeah.
But, when you then bring the clock forward, because I said, "You should probably charge him with a crime." I remember saying he committed a crime against you. And she was like, "I don't feel comfortable about that. And, he's someone I know." And, there's all of these weird facts that start playing into the story.
I know.
And you remember that swimmer down in Palo Alto.
That's right. That's a big case.
Big case. Judge Persky got crucified by giving him a light sentence. The sentence was what the probation department decided. And I think that case is going on quite a while. Persky was actually forced out, or
he was forced out.
Yeah, it was forced out. So we have a new standard.
Right.
Like you could say the Me Too movement has moved the goalposts in a way that says, look, no is no. Maybe we have to get to an enthusiastic yes, which really does change everything.
It's funny you say that, Jack. The defense attorney, part of her opening statement, she talked a lot about, you're going to hear a lot, I know everybody hears about the Me Too and this and that. She was kind of trying to draw the analogies that be careful, everybody still needs their due process, blah, blah, blah. And I got the sense that she felt like, and the kind of world feels like.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of The Valley Current.